You're listening to Passing Time, a Detroit Lions podcast. We're one pride and all grit, with a passion for Detroit Lions football. Whether you're between meetings, between classes, sitting in traffic, or just relaxing at home, if you have time to pass, pass it with Passing Time. Detroit Lions Talk.
Welcome back, episode number 39, episode 2 of season 2, my man.
Let's go. We're rolling now.
Hey, we're on the clock and you're passing time with us. This is a Detroit Lions podcast.
There
I'm
it
Rob.
is. I'm Brian.
Lots to get into. You know, the offseason's starting to pick up a little bit, Brian. The Lions made a big hire this week.
It was huge. It was huge.
It was huge. We're going to talk about that in this episode. We're going to talk a lot about some upcoming free agents in-house for the Detroit Lions.
Who we want to bring back, who we don't necessarily need, and how does that fit into our outlook for the offseason?
Brian's been doing a lot of homework on outside free agents. Brian, how many numbers were on that list that you shared?
I'm dabbling. I'm still working through the list, but there's like over 834 free agent names that I kind of like we're working on.
Brian said, hey, you want to talk about that today? I'm like, hey, maybe we'll push some of those names out to a future episode. Yep. But we will talk about a couple dream fit scenarios, just kind of teasing up some guys that probably won't land with the Lions based on contract situations, but they would be excellent additions.
But what we will do is we'll dive into our guys and who we think we should bring back and who we need to move on from. So
Bill's getting more involved, Brian.
He's typing away. He's only seconds away from his face showing on this podcast.
It's a beautiful
it's
mug.
Close. It's a beautiful mug.
Come on, Bill. Let's see it, man. Let's see it. So we're going to get into some of his bullet points. Brian, we're going to talk about all the important bowls. The Senior, the Shrine, and the Super.
Yeah, let's go.
We're going to talk about all the balls. This is going to be your wife's favorite episode right here. So let's get after it. Segment 1, we're going to talk about the Lions offseason and what's hot right now, Brian.
There's a big hire, and his name is Mike Kafka, one of the top prospects I think that we were talking about before we hired Drew Petzing, and it was one of those, like, you know, we're kind of feeling good about bringing in the interim head coach of the New York Giants, somebody who really gave the Lions some fits and pretty creative in his schemes with backup quarterback, backup running back, no Malik Neighbors, and hurt offensive linemen, and still took us to overtime. So
one of his best offensive games against the Lions, of course.
Yep.
Yeah, that's kind of the way the Lions were last year. Former quarterback at Northwestern, so smart guy. Played the quarterback position. Kind of known around the league as a passing game guru. One of the names that was, I don't know if that was 1A or 1B on my particular list. And on your list, it wasn't far from it was the Mike McDaniel, and then you started listing names a few pegs below.
And Kafka is right there on those names below. So I just think right now bringing him in after the Drew Petzing the Petzing hire, they just complement each other so well. You know, if you think of Petzing, and the more you've looked into him, the more that you know that his running game, his scheme, his 13 and 12 personnel, his ability to pin and pull and even, adapt to the guys that he has is great. But what he was lacking a little bit is that passing game creativity and complexity and getting and scheming guys open. So what happens is we go out and get a guy that is able to do that.
Incredible. And also our senior research analyst, friend of the pod, Chris Lalone, I think he was one of the top on his list.
Oh, absolutely.
So, yeah. So this is something that got our podcast a little bit excited. So, you're an analytics guy. So you want to put some frosting on this cake for us a little bit?
Well, sure. I mean, you heard last week when we talked about Drew Petzing, my first initial reaction was underwhelmed. But you pair that with a Mike Kafka and those two guys plus a Dan Campbell, and that becomes a little bit more exciting, right? One, it gives you a safety net for Dan Campbell that, let's say Drew Petzing for any reason doesn't do all the things that we want him to do. Kafka can kind of swoop that up and take on that role, and still allow Dan Campbell to be the CEO. And now we have the ability to be in all phases of the offense, pretty dynamic.
Yeah. Something just came to my head. Brian, we've done a podcast from my cottage in the summertime. You've been there, and I think you've experienced both sides of this equation. But we'll have a lot of people up. There'll be 10 adults and 22 kids running around, right? And some nights I'm out there and I'm cooking dinner by myself. Everybody's down having fun. The adults are drinking beer. The kids are wearing their life jacket, playing in the water, and everybody's down there having fun. And you're working the grill. You're running in. You're making sure the pots are boiling. You're doing all these things, and it's scramble mode. You're just trying to make sure you get dinner ready and you got all the things going on. That was Dan Campbell last year. He was doing all the things all by himself. Brian, now it kind of feels like the other scenario where sometimes you're at the cottage and you're cooking around the grill, and then Brian shows up and he's got a spatula. He's poking your meat a little bit. Chris Lalone shows up. He's poking it. T-Rob shows up, and everybody's around the grill, and they're all kind of got their own. So there's a lot of offensive play coaches now. Is somebody going to go?
And so that's a good question, because there's still guys like Shaw on this staff who are pretty tightly tied to John Morton, and one of the reasons that Shaw came over was Morton became the OC. So are we going to see David Shaw, say his goodbyes and move back to college? It sounds like his son transferred it back into Stanford, and he has ties there. So that's a very real possibility.
Mm-hmm.
You also look at guys like Scotty Montgomery, who we would hate to lose as our assistant head coach and wide receivers coach, but he's also getting some looks at OC for the Baltimore Ravens. Is he a real contender there, and will he look elsewhere, to take that next step?
Yeah. Also, ironically, I'm drinking a Kimball Lake Lager, which is my custom-made beer from my cottage, made by my friends at Lost Art Brewing Company. So cheers to you, Lost Art. Shout out, a free one for you guys. Hey,
Yeah.
Cheers. Yeah, we appreciate that. Here's my take on it. Dan gets back to being the CEO.
Yeah.
Lions get their O coordinator in Petzing, the ones that they coveted, right?
Yeah.
Specializes in smash mouth football. We lost a little bit of that last year. Known for running the football, short yardage passing game, which isn't sexy, and that's kind of how we're feeling. And then boom, we go out and we get a guy that specializes in the passing game. A young, energetic guy, works with quarterbacks. Really fresh offense, a little bit different there. So I made an analogy, Brian.
Okay, let me hear it.
So you walk in the bar with Brad and Dan, and it's an open bar. Okay,
It's my kind of bar.
and this is kind of bar that's got pretty much everything, right? You look up on the wall, and you're just like, holy cow! Your head hurts because you're looking at the top shelf, right? And you're like, man, I've never had any of those bourbons, right? And you're like, all right, but you let Dan and Brad order your drink, right? So you're kind of sitting behind them. They get to pick what you're drinking, right?
Yep.
So they go up to the bartender and they order some domestic beer you never heard of, a Kimball Lake Lager, right? And then you're squinting at the bartender. You're like, wait, like what? Like this is an open bar. I got a crick in my neck from staring at all those gem bourbons up there that I've always wanted to try. And you take a sip of the Kimball Lake Lager, and I'll do that right now. And it's cold. It's fresh. And it grows on you. I keep taking more sips, and and I'm trying to talk myself into it. I'm like, this is a pretty good beer. I'm lucky to have it. I'm with the boys. And Dan and Brad, they don't flinch. They don't even say anything. They're just like, hey, man, they're cool as cucumber. They're drinking their Kimball Lake Lager, and they don't say a word, right? So you're sitting there, and you're kind of processing the whole deal. And then 10 minutes later, Brad winks at the bartender, right? And they slide you down a Pappy Van Winkle, right? They slide you over a Kafka.
Yeah.
And suddenly everybody's like, oh, wait. They had a plan all along. These guys, they're going to cook, right? And the lesson here is, be patient. They've shown the ability to attract talent. Detroit's a place that's got a lot of tools, and people want to be here, and these guys know that, and they're playing the patient long game. And us fans, we get our panties in the bunch, and we got to sit back and drink our Kimball Lake Lager a little bit longer, because they might just slide us a Pappy Van Winkle down the road, right?
Yeah. No, I love that analogy, and it does taste better, and you appreciate it a little bit more after you have to have that pause for a second, and you kind of work your way through that Kimball Lake Lager, even though you're appreciating it and then enjoying it. It's one of those things that I didn't know much about Drew Petzing going into this. The more you learn about it, the more you can see some of the fits. But now that you tie him to a Dan Campbell and a Mike Kafka, and you can see what they're really cooking up, you just appreciate it a little bit more.
I'm getting really excited.
Yeah.
I went from like talking myself into it, being like, I'm looking at the analytics. I'm thinking like, okay, they know what they're doing. Sipping on that lager, like, all right. And now it's like, holy cow.
Yeah.
Like, we got like the best of both worlds jammed into one.
And now the only concern, and if you want to look at it from like a realistic viewpoint, you have some really bright minds. We got some strong minds in that room too. So it's going to take a Dan Campbell, very clearly laying out, this is your role in this offense. This is Drew. This is your role in this offense. This is my role as the head coach. And here's how things are going to transpire, how they're going to be rolled out. And so it's going to take a very clear expectations from day one, go into the season. So we don't ruffle each other's feathers, and we don't, step on each other's toes. And then I'm not poking, the grill when Rob's got it taken care of. So
don't poke the grill. And the way I think about it, go back to the bar analogy, is Dan selected every bottle that's on every shelf in that bar, right? And there's a variety, right? Mm-hmm. There's just not just bourbon. There's all the varieties. There's your tequilas, your vodkas, your rums, and you just can't go to another bar. Dan's like, hey, it's your offense, but here's the inventory. Okay, I want you to stick within the inventory and be creative. We hired you for your creative brain. You kind of heard differently in some podcasts that potentially it's just like, give you the keys, you can go to whatever bar you want.
Well, and you saw Dave Burkett meet up a little bit with Brad Holmes at the Senior Bowl, and pick his brain just for a heartbeat in regards to how he feels about the Petzing hire, and even how he feels a little bit about the Kafka hire. And he talked about how, hey, this is not just a Dan Campbell offense now. This is a Drew Petzing offense. This is his, and they're going to hand the keys to him and say, hey, this is your show, man. Let's roll with it. That they're excited about his ability to adapt to personnel. We may have seen a little bit more 12 and 13 personnel with more tight ends in the Arizona offense because that's where their strengths were. And hopefully we can see maybe a little bit more with our wide receiver game with Amon-Ra St. Brown and J-Mo and Tesla, and then you filter in the Sam Laportas and whoever else you might get in order to complete that roster. So,
and you shared with me off air an example of what the Lions have done in the past that kind of feels similar to something that was a little bit boring, and then all of a sudden on the back end of it, it all made sense and it got us real excited, and it was our best draft of all time.
Right. I mean, if you go back and you think about when we drafted Jahmyr Gibbs at running back, and everybody's like, why are you drafting a running back in the first round? And then we go back in the end of the first round and get Jack Campbell, and you ask yourself, why are we drafting a linebacker in the first round? I still remember going back and thinking, hey, this is what we're doing in our first round, our first two picks. And then you go back and you think the next round we get Sam Laporta, and then you get Brian Branch. And if you just did a little shuffling of those guys and reworked when you got who and when you picked them up, it felt better, right? It felt better that we got Branch because he could have been the end of that. He could have been swapped with Jack Campbell, and it would have made us all feel a lot better, right? I feel like this is kind of similar with the Petzing first, and then you got to wait a little bit. And in the second round, we get Kafka. And it's like, it makes you feel a little bit better about the whole, the whole outlook of this team. So,
now, in hindsight, now you're just fired up. And
now,
and up until like last year, we probably had Branch, here, and Jack Campbell maybe here. Have those two kind of like
100%? Those two have flopped, and we can. I mean, Jack Campbell is an All-Pro. He is right now the best linebacker in football, and
Wait. Say that one more time.
Jack Campbell has been rated the best linebacker in all of the NFL right now.
Wow.
and he's on our Detroit Lions. So appreciate this, right? And Brian Branch is banged up and hurt with that Achilles. He's going to come back. We're hoping that it's sooner than later, and he is still going to contribute to this. But there are these gaps and holes that we're going to fill, and we'll talk about those in a little bit.
Yeah. Well, here's a good segue.
Yep.
There's some holes in the team. There's no doubt, and this is an exciting time because the Lions didn't have it this year. So this wasn't the group, and they got a long look at why it wasn't the group. There's some guys that are going to fall off, and a few of those guys we might want back, but a few of those guys we're maybe okay if they find a new team.
Yeah. And
Brian, you've created a really nice list, and I think you got some Bills commentary on some of these names too. So
and Bill and I talked about this today. We got to go to school today. It wasn't a snow day, even though my commute was awful, blustery and snowy and icy. But we were able to collaborate a little bit, talk about, hey, here are the guys on my list. What are your thoughts? Yeah. And we kind of went through them. So
okay. So how do you want to proceed here? Do you want me to give you a name and then you kind of give maybe your reaction, and if Bill had anything that was noteworthy, you can kind of share Bill's, and if I have anything noteworthy, I'll just keep it going. Okay?
Sounds good.
All right.
Sounds good.
So I think naturally you got to start with the quarterback position. Kyle Allen's off the books right now, free agent.
I say you bring him back. I think he is just this okay, and Bill said meh, kind of free agent, but I think he fills a role. I think he's cost effective, and if we're relying on Kyle Allen in order to fill a significant amount of our season, then we're in a tougher spot regardless.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, ideally, is he the guy that's gonna, if Goff goes down, is he gonna deliver the performance to get you to the Super Bowl? No. Kyle Allen's fine. We got to save money on the cap. I think he comes cheap.
Yep.
There is a name, Jacoby Brissett, out there that seems like he could be a potential, though he might be looking for a place that maybe has maybe like a J.J. McCarthy type starter, where like if things aren't working out, he can go in and really fill that void.
Sure.
Khalif
Raymond, it would be he is a nice piece, but he's growing and aging into an older wide receiver. I think he still fits a cool niche role that we have on our offense, but you don't want to break the bank on him either.
Okay.
And you start to see Tesla kind of transition into more and more of that prominent wide receiver 3. So.
Yeah. Yep. I'm not going to go through every name here.
Yeah.
So Zylstra, tight end. I mean, there's other tight ends that are free agents that are more meh.
If you look at our tight end room, for the most part, we need to upgrade those spots, especially if we are going to start relying on a 12 and 13 personnel. So
okay. On the O-line, you got Skip, retired.
Retired.
Is there anybody on the O-line? There's a lot of free agents in there. Is there anybody that you're just kind of like? I mean, to me, it's like, see you guys later.
I mean, I feel like we could get the same level of these backup free agents at a cheaper price, and we wouldn't have too much of a drop off when it comes to the play on the field.
So Marco Jones is the only name in there that I'm kind of like, you know what, they're intriguing guy at one point, 5-star high school player, big SEC school, maybe there's some untapped potential there, but we haven't really seen much.
I mean, Yoda is a free agent, and he filled some starts, but didn't knock anybody's socks off. Yeah. And Cologne played a pretty significant role throughout the season and didn't play well. So ultimately, those are guys I think we can still upgrade and not break the bank. So.
Okay, so here's an interesting group here on the defensive line.
Yeah,
you got Reader.
DJ Reader, I think is gone. I think his price tag is going to overshadow his play on the field. And having Tyleek going into second year, having an Ali McNeil who is going to be healthy this next year, and we're gonna say a name here in a second that I think is gonna kind of fill his void.
Okay, do you want me to say that one right now?
Sure.
Okay, Levi.
Well,
Roy Lopez.
Roy Lopez is one of those guys I think that is going to fill a DJ Reader role. He's going to be a bit cheaper. He's still going to demand some fairly significant pay and hit on the cap, but I think he is going to be a guy that wants to come back. Loved Detroit, and there's this Arizona tie again.
Yeah. Onwuzurike, you liked him. You thought you were higher on him coming in the year.
I feel like, before this past year, before he was hurt, yeah, I wanted to come in. I think him coming in and on a cost-effective deal for 1 year and a prove-it deal made sense. Coming off of a pretty decent season, but now he's coming off an injury, and you hope you can get him again cheaper, and he could again fill that role. So if he could have a similar year as he had last year, then we could be in a good spot for a pretty cost-effective guy.
Okay, let's talk about a guy we both were kind of proven wrong on, Marcus Davenport.
Marcus Davenport, I feel like has to go, only because of the Eric Ebron rule, right? And, he has kind of burned the fans too many times, and unless he comes in at a vet minimum for 1 year and is a backup role, you can't bring this guy back. You can't rely on Marcus Davenport to come in and play significant snaps.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what about a guy that on the box sheet looked pretty good?
Muhammad, he had a breakout year for him, right? And in my opinion, he is going to demand too much money, and I think we can bring in someone else, hopefully a young draftee, in order to fill that role. Because one, he didn't play significant snaps. He was only there on pass rushing downs. He did not stop the run all that well, but was able to put some pressure on the quarterback. So
he did. He was challenging for the most sacks in the team, right?
Yep.
I don't know the numbers.
I think he had either 11 or 12 sacks, and Hutch had 14 and a half. So.
Yeah.
Yep.
Pascal.
Pascal, right at this point with the injury history, it's just time to move on.
Yeah. So we go to linebacker. There's a couple linebackers here that are intriguing, right? And Anzalone, obviously, that's been a name out there.
I want him back. I think Anzalone for us is part of that heartbeat of this defense. And if we're going to rely on covering running backs and tight ends in man coverage with a linebacker, he is the only of our three linebackers that can do it. Now, if you're going to adjust your scheme and bring in a nickel or a heavy nickel that I don't think is on our team really right now, then maybe you can adjust that a little bit. But the Lions played a 3-linebacker, a 4-3, a 3-linebacker set. Majority of the time they're almost stubborn that they didn't pull one of those 3 linebackers off the field. And at this point, if we are going to run that scheme, we need 3 significant linebackers, and Anzalone is the only of those 3 that can cover somebody out of the backfield. Rodrigo is a nice backup piece. He is a 4th linebacker. He is a special teamer. Though as much as I really appreciate him, I think we can move on. Okay. Only because I think he can start in a different role and a different team.
What about our famous kick returner, Grant Stewart?
It all depends on what he is going to demand. I think that he again fills that backup role okay. I think he's a life special teamer, and he's gonna run down the field with his hair on fire, and if they ask him to return kicks, but he's going to be a guy that it's going to be how much is he going to demand?
Zach Cunningham.
I think he's going to be a cheap, and I think he's going to be an easy backup, and I think he is a pretty high quality backup.
Okay. So, Ezekiel Turner?
It depends. If you don't bring Cunningham back, then yes, with Ezekiel Turner.
Good point.
If you do bring Cunningham back, then he's maybe that next guy down the list. So
I like your call on Cunningham. I feel like he fits that role. He's solid. You're not scared when they got to put him on the field.
100%.
But also, he's not a guy that's going to demand a bunch of money. He felt like he was a good culture fit.
Yep.
Maybe he wants to be a Lion.
Yep.
Cornerback room's interesting, man. There wasn't our most productive room this year. We had to play a lot of guys that, the Legion of Whom, a lot of guys that weren't supposed to be featured, had to be featured for prominent parts of this season.
And, if you look at it, it could have been worse, right? And so if you look at, the guys that are on the field and what we asked them to do, because we didn't we didn't adjust our man scheme until later in the season, still asking these what we wouldn't consider a starting caliber, corner or safety, and we're asking them to do hard things.
Yeah. So we got Amik. I'm gonna lump them all into
Sure.
one, and I'll let you give the summary there. Amik's a guy I really love, man. He's
Yep.
just a guy that person I want back. You got Rock, you got Arthur, you got Vontae, who came on very strong. I mean, those are honestly, you talk about those guys, and my first opinion is just yeah, I kind of want all of them back.
You almost need all of them back unless you can upgrade one of those guys. And when it comes to a price tag, I don't know how you do that.
Yeah. Is there safeties it's an underwhelming list of guys that we need to upgrade that.
We do, and I wouldn't be surprised if in the draft we find somebody, and in free agency outside of our room we find somebody. But let's not forget we did draft Dan Jackson last year, who was hurt all year. And I personally think that he was in a weight training program all year to make sure his body was ready for an NFL type career. But we'll see.
You conspiracy theory?
It's a little conspiracy theory.
Okay, all right.
How do you hold on to a guy, not make him hit your 53-man roster, and continue to build his strength and endurance? So
okay, so kind of not following the script here, but
yeah.
Is there a name or two that you're give me one name that you can't live without, one name that is maybe a prominent player that you hope moves on, not like a Davenport, but don't use Davenport as an example there. And then give me one surprise name that is kind of coming out of left field of this roster.
Okay.
That you think that potentially will get paid a lot more money than what we think is out there.
Okay. Somebody who I think is coming back, that you might not. I still think Alex is somebody that wants to be here. I think that he wants to be paid, but I don't think that he is going to be. If we are respectful to him and pay him a fair wage, he's not going to ask for more than that.
I think he wants term
Yeah.
as well, right? I don't think he wants to. I think he wants to have a family, and he wants to tell his family hey, we got
3 years,
few years here.
Yep, 2 or 3 years, and I'm going to make $6.5 million a year to be the linebacker of the Detroit Lions, and we're gonna at the end of that term, I'm gonna retire.
You think he's comfortable transitioning from a Batman to a Robin role?
I think he is. I think that I don't know. I don't know if that's that. I think he loves the captain role. I think he loves that this was his defense, or when he was in charge. I think that he thrived a little bit more in that. But I think it is so important for Jack to take on more of that responsibility.
The green dot. Yeah.
Yep.
Who's a guy that you really don't want to come back? Maybe a productive player, but you're just kind of I'm ready to move on. You might have gave it away a little bit.
I think Malcolm is that guy that is, as much as I appreciate when we drafted him and he started and overperformed where we drafted him, it was great. But at the same point, we needed to be better than that. And so when as much as I love him and his cowboy boots and his ability to tackle effectively, I think that he deserves to go on to somewhere else and play a significant role.
Okay, is there a guy on the list that you think is going to have a huge demand out there and get paid not by the line?
I think Muhammad is out, and I think he's going to get too much money. And when he goes there, he is not going to perform like he did across from Hutch.
Okay, so somebody's Marcus Davenport.
Yep.
Sans injury, but somebody's going to pay him. Okay. Anything else you want to put on this group of potential or free agents coming from the Lions?
The only other one that we talked about it, and we touched on briefly, is Amik, and I'm concerned that he's going to move on and demand that a very similar price tag as Muhammad. Maybe not similar as Muhammad, but a starting role, if you will, somewhere else. And so I'm interested to see what they are willing to give Amik or offer Amik, and then if they want to have him come back, given the fact that we have DJ Reed under contract, we have 2 younger two younger corners with Terrion Arnold, who is hopefully going to be back from injury, and who knows what Ennis Rakestraw can bring to this team. If he could just get on the field a little bit and show us, that'd be awesome. But ultimately, he is a leader of this team. He is exactly what you ask for from a Detroit Lion. He comes from the dirt, and he's got that grit.
Completely random thought.
Sure.
I'm watching the Patriots last couple weeks, and Carlton Davis is showing up, and he's looking like an alpha cornerback.
Yeah.
I mean, he's opposite another alpha cornerback. But you and I talked in the offseason, DJ Reed, and maybe how we got a pretty good deal on the switch there. I'm thinking Carlton was a bigger loss than we ever noted on the show.
I completely agree. We made ourselves believe in the Lion hopium that DJ Reed was a plus in regards to that move, and he's still a plus corner. But if you remember him, even in New York, he was number 2. So does it take a year to figure out to be the alpha? He was banged up and injured, this year as well. He was playing behind a scheme that maybe he's not used to, and
A lot of excuses there.
yeah,
Right?
exactly right. But ultimately, you're right. Carlton played better than DJ Reed this year, and Carlton deserved the paycheck that he earned in New England. So
Boy, yeah, he's cocky, but man, he's really backing it up. Anyway,
for sure.
that was just a random thought
Yep.
I had. It just came to my head watching some of these games. Other news, kind of transitioning into maybe the dream team free agents that are out there.
Who's your dream team? Free agents. Who are you looking for?
Yeah, we're gonna go through a few names at some key positions.
Right.
Noteworthy: the Ravens center Linderbaum today was not given his 5th-year option.
We just take a pause and say a little something to the guy upstairs for Tyler Linderbaum. Hey, whatever we got to do. Okay? Yeah.
Whatever we gotta do.
Yeah. All right.
So the key here is he plays a center position. And on the free agent market, the center position isn't quite valued as high as a tackle or even a really good guard. But as the NFL looks at contracts, the 5th-year option to match is an offensive lineman, right? So they're going to have to pay him a huge $24 million to keep him for one more year. So I think they still want him to be part of the squad, but $24 million was $5 million more than the next highest paid center, right? So he's out there. They want him, but that's kind of like saying, like, it's telling like the cable company, like, I'm not going to pay $200 a month, cancel me. And then, like, actually canceling it and calling them up when you have no cable the next day, being like, hey, will you come back? It's a tough bargain. You might have to go find a new cable company, right? Like,
Yep.
So he might be finding a new team. There's going to be plenty of bidders, but man, this is the guy that's just like, he would solve so many problems for the Lions.
Yep, and I think that center has got to be a priority. And if you look at free agency, that's going to be number 1. And if you look at 2 through 12, it's going to be on the defensive side of the ball. But number 1 is center. And so, like, Linderbaum is top of my list.
He's going to covet, statistically speaking, not $24 million a year like that 5th option, but probably 17 to 20, and he's going to get turned.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So the Lions have some issues there, and that would eat up a lot of cap. But you made a good couple points when we were talking about this off camera.
Well, one, we're going to start to restructure, and that's going to start probably with Jared Goff. You're going to look at him. He is not. I am doubtful that he'll make $50 million a year this year. We'll renegotiate and restructure that contract in order to open up some space. I wouldn't be surprised if Amon-Ra does the same. And then you look at guys like that are potential cut candidates like Graham Glasgow, and you look at potential retirees like Taylor Decker. And so all of those pieces that kind of trickle down open up, more space and more wiggle room when it comes to free agency.
Yeah. Okay. Braden Smith for the Colts, veteran right tackle. You have to kick Sewell to the left side, or maybe he could play the left side. Really good pass blocker. I think one thing that the Lions need is to keep Goff upright, give him time.
Yep.
That could be something. He's maybe a 12 to 15 million a year. He's probably gonna, being a little bit older, probably want some term. That's a guy that we could see. I mean, he'd fit really well. Here's one that kind of fits a couple needs. Connor McGovern from the Bills, guard tackle. Just he's been steady. You know, he's versatile. Played.
Yep.
I was looking at it. He's played left guard, right guard, center. He would let the lines be multiple with what they want to do and let guys kind of figure it out.
And that seems like a guy that's more up their alley in regards to, one, closer to the price tag that they want to pay, and two, the versatility that they love in their offensive linemen. So still a vet, and I think a veteran center is going to be super important. It allows them to keep Tate Ratledge at right guard. I think Sewell's going to be able to be flexible. Being the best right tackle in the game is awesome, and I think that he would love to stay there if that works out for us. But we got to remember, in college and year one, he played left tackle, and he was no slouch at left tackle. And so allowing Goff's blind side to be pretty much locked down is not it can't be underappreciated either. So
McGovern, I'm kind of looking at forecasting contracts. He's about half the price as Linderbaum.
Yep.
So that might fit the lines a little bit more. He's not as exciting. And you get Linderbaum, and that's like, okay, you're getting back in the conversation of a top 10 offensive line, maybe even better than that.
Right.
You get a guy like McGovern, and you're a respectable offensive line, and
right.
you filled a major hole. Flipping the sides of the ball here, I'm not going to do it. I'm not.
You're not going to say the name?
Are there? Okay, give me a couple edge prospects out there. That
I'm not. No, I want it to come from you.
I can't say. There's a fellow out on the West Coast coming from the Chargers, who just was a unbelievable player.
Okay.
He's a free agent. He's going to cover a lot of money, probably 15 to 20 million a year. Relatively young, former first rounder,
sure.
Game record for the Chargers. I can see the Chargers really going back after him. That's a guy that is a dream scenario guy, but I don't think he's gonna be a Lion.
Nope.
Kwity Paye, former Michigan, former first rounder to the Colts. Maybe a little less on the contract there. Still a pretty high number.
Yeah.
He is not a sack machine, but he does a lot of things that you kind of want your defensive end to do. He fits the scheme very well, but he can put pressure on the quarterback, and he draws some respect, so Aiden doesn't have to get double teamed and chipped every single
right.
play.
And I think that's going to be pretty important for us to find some guy that fits the scheme, whatever that might be. Is it going to be crush the can, or are we going to go like we're going to get after it this year and pin our ears back? So it's going to be, it's going to be very much determined on the guy that we've been looking. Typically we've been looking for that 6'7", long-armed, large-bodied, broad-shouldered, DN that can stop the run and on its way to the quarterback, alongside or on the opposite side of Aiden Hutchinson, and we just can't. We haven't.
Trey Hendrickson.
There it is. But we just we can't find that guy, right? That's obviously affordable. And I think that we ultimately probably look into the draft for that guy.
Yeah.
So.
The draft gives you the ability to fish with dynamite for contracts, right? Like you can get that really high upside guy. You can get 4 to 5 years of control. You can also miss, but it gives you that ability to go out there and find the guy, because once they become free agents, that position is so coveted. I don't know. Beyond the quarterback, a game-wrecking defensive end might be the number 2 position that they're looking for.
That or left tackle, right? So those 2 positions are probably the next behind quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to get into.
We'll get into draft and who's on that board and who we're looking for and all that those types of stuff later. But
a bit of a tease. But let's get into Bill's bullet points for the final segment of this episode.
Sure. Bill, I love the dude. I love the dude, and he has he's still continuing to be Bill.
Time out.
Yeah.
As they say in the South, when they say, "Oh, Bill, bless his heart," that means something bad's coming. So
No.
when you say in the North, "Oh, Bill, I love Bill,"
No, Bill. Hey, I'm gonna give Bill some credit. He's been right. He's been right a lot, and he has showed concerns for guys like Vaki and Manu, and he has shown concerns for Shep. He has shown concerns for Brad Holmes. He thinks that these guys are the smartest guy in the room, a little bit arrogant, and unwilling to adapt along the way. They want to stay very true to what they believe is right. And to me, that's sometimes it's a testament to their convictions. And I also think that they need to be somewhat flexible, so they got to find a balance there. And I think what Bill has been talking about is, we need to bolster our defense. He's concerned that Shep is his ability to do that in year 2. He thinks that guys like Petzing and even Kafka are guys that are going to come in to fit Dan's scheme, and that maybe Dan is a little bit more. I guess he's a little bit more stubborn in regards to letting go, even though they may be saying those words to his offense. So that's where Bill is at. And there's a lot to be seen as we move forward, but he does believe that Shep has some ability, and maybe in year 3 or 4 or 5, he could be a pretty premier defensive coordinator. But our window is now, and he thinks that we might need to bring in someone to oversee that, right? Some vet defensive mind that can help support Shep and guide him, almost mentor.
a Kafka to a Petzing, somebody that can see it at a different level.
Just someone that, yes, absolutely, that has a different vantage point other than Aaron Glenn and Shep. So Aaron Glenn, molded Shep to who he is, and that's what he knows right now, right? So maybe again a different vantage point that might balance this yin and yang out, like you said, like a Kafka with a Petzing. So yeah.
So the Lions have shown the ability to do that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and Dan Campbell, stubborn or not stubborn, he's coming to Detroit, and he's taken a losing culture, a losing franchise, and flipped that on its head. We're sitting here with expectations, and it sounds like Bill's putting, Dan Campbell on the hot seat if things don't go perfectly right this year. And to me, that's crazy.
And that's where Bill's at right now. He says they could be, and he looks at Dan and Brad and even Sheila more of a team, right? And sometimes you need an overseer of that team to light that fire. And he thinks that Sheila might be more team oriented rather than the boss. And so maybe there's a little bit of that part of it as well.
Okay. So if you're a Bills fan, are you happy with what they did with their head coach this year?
I'm not. I think that's freaking crazy.
Yeah. If you're a Ravens fan, are you happy with what they did with their coach this year?
I'm not. I think that's freaking crazy.
So, this whole coaching turnover thing is pretty wild, right?
It's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. I mean, I think it's very unprecedented that you see 10 head coaching opportunities available. What was it, 17 offensive coordinators? Who knows how many defensive coordinators? I mean, it's crazy to see that the landscape of the NFL flip the way it did this year.
And then it gets retread, right? 10 guys get let go. 7 of them are landing on their heads at another one of the jobs, and then we usher in 3 new coaches. Right?
But and you talked about the Ravens, and it's funny how the Ravens becomes the premier spot for the next head coach, and then John Harbaugh becomes the premier head coach for the next head coaching opportunity. And so it's baffling to see that they might not be a fit, but they're both the premier spot for the next guy.
It's insane. The story will play out,
Yeah.
but man, if I'm the franchise that's got a John Harbaugh, a guy that is tried and true, consistent, leader of men, a good motivator, I'm not like grass is greener kind of
No.
guy. I'm just like, you know what? There's going to be some up years, there's going to be some down years in the NFL. Sustainability is very difficult.
Yep.
But I'm riding that as long as I can ride it because I've been where the grass isn't green.
Yeah.
And it sucks. I've seen
Right.
a new coach every 2-3 years come rear their ugly heads and then leave. And when you finally get a winning culture, you get a guy that knows how to lead that. Like, kind of hang on to him. That's what we have with Dan Campbell.
And I agree. I am still a Dan Campbell believer, and we've said this week in and week out. I'm still a Brad Holmes believer, even though I don't believe he's infallible. I think that he has his flaws, but I think that he's better than most.
Okay.
So
Let's leave the shrine and the all the non-Super Bowl talk for later on this
Okay.
week, next week.
yeah.
Let's kind of finish up. I know I said last segment was our last segment. This is what we like to do. Let's quickly kind of talk about the Super Bowl this year.
Okay.
Ryan.
So we have two teams. Would you have picked the Seattle Seahawks and the New England Patriots as your Super Bowl finalists for this year?
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
You got the extreme coasts pretty much represented.
Yeah.
Not a sexy matchup, I would say.
But if you look at these teams, what do they do well? They do everything well, right? And if you look at all three phases, you can't necessarily feel like there's a big drop off in any of the phases. You look at the Rams and their special teams was lacking, but their offense was elite. You look at the Denver Broncos and their defense was elite. Their special teams was solid, but their offense was lacking, right? Especially with a backup quarterback. And then you look at the Patriots and you have all three phases are solid. And you look at the Seattle Seahawks and all three phases are solid. And you might even extend that to an elite defense.
Yeah.
So, you look at what these teams in even the Final Four, and 3 of the 4 have elite defenses. And then the Rams also had an elite offense.
Listening to, what was it, Locked On Lions today, hearing them talk about the Lions offensive coordinator hire, mostly Petzing, and they talked about Seattle last year. 2 years ago, Seattle hired, what is his name? He was
Kubiak?
he was at Washington. Their original hire, Mike McDonald's original hire, and he didn't follow Kalen DeBoer to Alabama. He hired him right from the University of Washington, gave him 1 year. They mutually agreed to separate ways. He went down to Alabama, became their offensive coordinator, reunited with Kalen DeBoer. And what's he do? He looks around the NFL, and he goes and picks up Clint Kubiak from the Saints.
Yeah.
Who had a dismal offense.
Terrible offense.
So, again, you can give Jeff Gordon the keys to my minivan, and he's still not going to beat you and your Corvette.
Right.
So, you got a name for me?
Is it Ryan Grubb?
Yeah. Yep. So, Ryan Grubb, he was a sexy guy coming out of, Washington, just made a national championship run.
Yep.
Kalen DeBoer got hired. They kept him right there. Loved his offense. Wasn't what it was.
Yep.
Went and got a meat and potatoes kind of guy, and then now they're playing for the Super Bowl. So a parallel to the Lions. Like,
Sure.
We kind of feel like, hey, we weren't there this year. We would go out and get a meat and potatoes kind of guy. Who knows what this can bring?
Yeah, and that dismal offense, there's a parallel there. But the Arizona Cardinals had injuries, and Drew Petzing dealt with the best he could with what he had. But these two teams, the Patriots and the Seahawks, have found ways to make it work, and kind of in different ways, right? You have a free agent quarterback on the Seattle Seahawks who come in year one, and you have a young, still rookie contract quarterback on the Patriots. So they're able to build those teams around those guys, where the Seattle Seahawks have paid their guy a pretty substantial amount, and the Patriots are paying everybody else a pretty substantial amount. So
yeah. Anything noteworthy coming into this? Are you thinking one way or the other, or do you have any
I think they're very similar in the way that they're built, because they're good in all three phases. I just think the Seattle Seahawks are better, right? And so you look at all three phases, the Seattle Seahawks are just one step beyond where the Patriots are. I think the scary part, I think the Patriots are going to be good next year as well and the year after. And I think the Seattle Seahawks could be that one and done kind of team.
So what the Seahawks are playing that second place schedule this year. The Patriots are playing the fourth place schedule. Patriots, I think your notes are like they had an interesting season this year where they played against 12 retired or fired coaches, right? Like,
Yep.
Your note, not mine. They got to play the Jets twice. Must be nice.
But you look at the Seahawks, and their schedule is brutal. And in the division they play in is brutal, So
that was, we talked about the North being the best division in football, and they were a very good division.
Yeah.
But I think that NFC West was the best division.
Oh man, the San Francisco 49ers, the LA Rams, they are just that's a good league right there. That's a good division.
Who you got?
I'm picking the Seattle Seahawks, and I don't think it's gonna be close.
Okay, wow. So Seahawks to cover.
Yep.
And you're a big JSN fan too.
I think that he's going to win Offensive Player of the Year this year. I think that he is, he's really broke out. And, Sam Darnold last year crumbled under that pressure. I think he's learned a ton from that, and is not going to allow that to happen again. So,
Kenneth Walker doesn't get enough love.
No.
I remember Kenneth Walker for the Spartans. The only regular season loss that Michigan had was because Kenneth Walker put the whole stadium on his back.
Yep.
And he is he's a good player. I believe he's in a contract year. I think he's making himself some money.
He's going to yeah, for sure. And, Charbonnet, when he went down, everybody's kind of going, is what's Kenneth Walker going to do? And what does he come out and scores 3 touchdowns? And he's been putting that team on his back, that offense on his back since Charbonnet's been out. So
I think you think about Monty. We feel like sometimes we got Gibbs, who's so great. We give him praise. We got this guy Monty. We're keeping him in the garage all the time. We're not putting the miles on him. But you kind of need 2 guys. If you're going to make that run, if one guy gets hurt, that is a very close comparison. Way different. Charbonnet and Gibbs are way different players. But being able to have a Monty in our garage at all times, I think the Lions can make a run with Monty.
I completely agree. I think I don't know if this is going to be a repeat, but Monty's success is dependent on Gibbs, and Gibbs' success is dependent on Monty. I think that they play so well in that Sonic and Knuckles role, and they need each other.
We're a Lions podcast, right? We're talking about the Super Bowl. We bring it back to the Lions.
By the way, Monty, if you're listening to this, and I know you are, don't go anywhere. All right, don't.
Monty,
friend
of the pod.
We got you.
So, anything else before we sign off, Brian?
No, hey, just check us out. All right, we've been putting some shorts out. We do the thing on TikTok. We do the thing on Instagram. We do the thing on YouTube. Give us a little like. Give us a little love.
Click the button. Brian, what'd you do yesterday? Give those guys a little love.
Yesterday went on.
Brian, he stares at me like he saw a ghost. Like, what did I do?
No,
yesterday?
I went on Talking Grit. Those guys are awesome. Jason and Jacob, hilarious, fun. They do a great job. They run a professional podcast, and check them out. Talking Grit. It's on YouTube. Was able to hang out.
Spotify. They're on everything you can be on.
Was able to hang out with them for a little over an hour and talk all the things, the Kafka thing, all the awards that are being given out, and those guys are good dudes. So check them out. Talking Grit.
Just absolute grinders over there.
Yeah,
absolute grinders.
Man, they putting some stuff out.
Yeah. So you see our pod once a week. I know you're anxiously waiting, refreshing your thing all the time. While you're hitting the refresh button, if we don't pop up, like we didn't put a new episode out, go check them out.
Yeah.
But keep refreshing us because we still need the love.
Yep.
But we appreciate you passing time with us. We are a Detroit Lions podcast. Our season is the off season. So stay tuned this week, next week, future weeks, because we're going to slay this off season. This is the place you need to be.
All right, man.
Signing off.
Yeah.
Cheers, Brian.